Hi, I'm Vince, and today's video might well be quite a controversial one, because Magic players are always perpetually angry, and I'm expected to do the same, which I don't always do. Sometimes I like things that wizards do. I've been rather vocal about the fact that the changes to alchemy, or to what alchemy is on Arena, filtering through to historic, are fucking stupid. I've also been pretty vocal about how dog shit the Arena economy is, and how bad it continues to be. It's getting worse, like a downward spiral of diarrhea in a toilet bowl full of horse shit. I also want to point out that I can swear as much as I want, like a trooper, like a fucking trooper in this intro without fear of demonetization, thanks to today's sponsor, NordVPN. More on that in a moment. But with all that vocal criticism, and in my opinion quite rational disagreement and criticism of Arena and things that Wizards of the Coast do, people expect me to shit on everything that they do. They expect me to have just a negative opinion on everything. Hell, I'm accused quite often of being negative for the sake of it. But what I actually want to put forward is that there is the ability for nuance on the internet. There's there's room for opinions that have multifaceted and differing angles, essentially. Like, you can agree with one thing and disagree with another. Today I'm going to defend digitally unique cards, much probably to the upset of many of my viewers. I just don't hate everything that Arena is or it stands for. Although, I guess, if you would argue it stands for corporate greed, as it often seems to, then I disagree with that, but I quite like Arena for the most part. It is clean and it's simple to use, and I think Historic is a very fun format. If you caught any of the streams recently of me playing Historic, I am generally having fun. I'm fucking howling at times at how fun it can be. So like I said, opinions can be nuanced, they can have depth. So it's time to defend digitally unique Magic cards that are in Arena and filtering into Historic. But first, I'm going to press this button. There we go, change that light. But first, people often ask me, do I use the products that I shill for in the ad reads in my videos? And my response to that is, fuck yes, baby, I do. NordVPN! For instance, I was recently looking to rewatch Mandy on Shudder, a movie I cannot recommend enough. It's like a drug trip metal album cover in movie form, and we weren't allowed to watch it in our poor European servers. And whilst that wasn't because of Brexit, I'm going to blame Brexit anyway. But with NordVPN, I was able to connect to the American servers and enjoy the content I wanted like it was some sort of global village. Content without borders. Take that, Brexit, you shit. NordVPN! I was also lucky enough to travel recently before the Omicron variant started to clap the cheeks of Great Britain. And when using my laptop in airports and whilst abroad, I use NordVPN to help secure my browsing and my data behind a wall of next level encryption. Double protection, baby. Change your IP twice. NordVPN. So what are you waiting for? Take control of your online experiences today, whether that be your content or your security, with NordVPN. Right now you can get a 2-year plan with a massive discount and an extra month free by following the link in the description below, which takes you to nordvpn.com/Kenobi. That's nordvpn.com/Kenobi. Risk-free, 13-day money-back guarantee. Why not? What are you fucking waiting for? Another Brexit? Click the link below to help support the channel, get yourself NordVPN, and thank you to NordVPN for continuing to sponsor my Shout Magic business. With that out of the way, let's talk about digitally only cards, or cards that are only available in digital. For those of you who don't know, these are some examples of digital only cards. This is Davriel versus one of my new favorite cards, the Inquisitor Captain. Davriel was from the first instance of this, the historical Jumpstart cards. So we had Jumpstart, which was a product line for Magic the Gathering in paper that came to Arena, which introduced cards like Muxus and Allosaurus Shepherd, cards that were only legacy legal in paper to historic, but it also brought with it digitally unique cards that could not be played in paper, cards that many people in my comment section often say they can by retemplating them and getting really fucking convoluted and getting into the weeds with it, but you can't, alright? Seek and all these sort of things, these new mechanics don't work in paper, and honestly, I love that they're exploring this space with the digital cards. Next up, after that, we had Alchemy. Alchemy being the rejigging of Standard, a digitally rated Standard that also brought with it, for some inexplicable reason, 60 more digitally unique cards that all fitted into Historic too. Two different instances here of different bunches of his digitally unique cards coming in. So Jumpstart sort of paved the way, and Alchemy is expanding upon that. My initial reservation and frustration with this that I talked about in several videos was that I didn't really want Historic to move away from paper. And this is a big distinction, right? As we add digitally unique cards to Arena and then to Historic specifically, Historic no longer looks like a paper format in any way, shape or form. I was actually imagining a future where we actually bought and sleeved up Historic decks and played them in paper, and it became a format like Legacy or Modern or Pioneer that you could play in paper at the side events of a GP, at a tournament, at your local F&M. But they decided that that wasn't the case and they wanted to keep it real unique by adding digitally unique cards. And I guess to get it out of the way, the crux of my argument is that other formats have this already. So in Legacy, as I mentioned already, Muxus and Allosaurus Rider from Jumpstart are legal, but you go back to things like Mox Diamonds and Tabernacles. This card here, a Tabernacle, incredibly expensive, incredibly powerful land that's very unique in what it does. And it's not playable anywhere other than Legacy and Vintage and Commander to a lesser extent, I guess, but it's not a card that's available in Modern or Pioneer. To have cards that are unique to a format is not unusual, and it's not inherently a problem. And we see this as well with Modern Horizons, injecting cards directly into Modern and Legacy. For the longest time, there was a through line, right? Whereas cards got older, or were older, they'd be available in older formats. And you had like tier cutoffs, Vintage into Legacy, into Modern, into Standard, and then Pioneer brought that out from RTR as well. But now we have new cards being printed literally at the moment, within like the last like 6 months, that go directly into Modern and Legacy but aren't playable in Pioneer, and half of them don't show up in Historic either. It does make things more complicated, but it's not unusual, and it's not inherently a problem. So the crux of my argument is, this already happens. To have some of them be only on Arena is not inherently a problem because this already happens, and no one was that fussed about it before. Now, I'm going to address some of the obvious counter-arguments, like the mechanics themselves fucking suck, which I disagree strongly with. The digitally unique cards have some mechanics that just aren't doable in paper. Seeking and drafting and conjuring. Conjure is a good example of this. Suntail Squadron here is a card that I think will see very little play, but it's an interesting design. 4 mana instant, conjure a card named Suntail Hawk into your hand, so this 1 mana flying lifelinker. And if you have fewer than 7 cards in your hand, repeat this process. So it fills your hand with 1 mana Suntail Hawks. But these are not copies or tokens. These are actual cards that will go to your graveyard and will interact with the rest of the game in that way. They can be shuffled back into your library and so on. This is a thing that you could do in paper, but it'd fuck the game up immensely, so they don't. And I think it opens up some interesting space for new archetypes and new combos and new styles of play. And the big argument is that, well, it doesn't feel like Magic anymore. But that argument is used for physical fucking mechanics all the time, whether it be Mutate or Companion or whatever the latest mechanic is that people get their knickers in a twist about. Although, that said, Companion was one of the worst things to ever happen to Magic, and if you were criticizing that, you were right. But saying it doesn't feel like Magic is weird, because surely every new mechanic doesn't feel like Magic. There is that old axiom, the joke that recently happened on the Professor's channel, it's made it popular as well, is that everything is a variant of Kicker. And whether you see that as a warm fuzziness or as a criticism, well, if you see it as a criticism of Magic's inherently simplistic design, then these things are really moving away from that, because Kicker doesn't generate new cards that go into your deck. The other argument is the random nature of these things. Inquisitor Captain is a good example of this, of it like randomizing cards out of your library and you get to pick one of them, but it's really, really no further different than Collected Company or similar, except you can't manipulate it by putting things on top of your deck. Honestly, I am shocked that people think this is randomness for randomness' sake, when we've been having randomized fucking cards for God knows how long. Hell, the D20 system that people moaned about as well is randomness, right? But it's not super duper random. People are getting really stuck up on the idea of randomization in a card game in which you are shuffling your deck to truly randomize it, and sometimes you don't draw enough lands. Like, randomization is inherent to the game, and these are not making the game super duper random. They're adding a small, maybe facet of randomness, but no different to what rolling D20s would do, like Collected Company would do, or classic cards like Mind's Desire do. I will concede that there is a concern around just the baggage of these cards. There's just so many words on the vast majority of them. Like, Expedition Supplier is a good example of where this doesn't matter too much. Whenever Expedition Supplier enters the battlefield, you conjure a new card, a utility knife that enters the battlefield, and the knife itself triggers to be put onto somebody. Once you've read it or seen it in action, it is so grokkable and so clean and so simple and so elegant. I think this design is fantastic. Whoever came up with this is props up. This is one of my favourite of the modern designs, even if it's not that powerful. I think it's actually reasonably. But then you have cards that you have to read like 3 or 4 times, and once you see them in action, it kind of explains it more. But Oglord, Devoted Assistant, making flashback cards generate zombies in some sort of roundabout way, is complicated and with a lot of text, but I guess less text not taking paper. And then the rules blow element comes further as we get to the draft cards. Cards that draft 15 or one of 15 other cards. These bug me a little bit because how the fuck do you play around something that can generate one of 15 variables? And Davriel is the fucking cake of all this, with multiple upsides and downsides generated when you activate him, all of which come from a list that basically makes him the longest text-based card in competitive Magic. I did a video on this before where everyone claimed is actually Urza from Unstable, but that's because they're fucking stupid. That card isn't playable in any format barring fuck about kitchen table. But having this much text on a card, half of it hidden, things you have to consult fucking graphs for or grids for, or go search up cards on Gatherer or Scryfall, it does add a lot of baggage. And whilst I think sometimes this is perfectly reasonable, I think some of these cards that draft new cards are really cool. Slayer's Bounty would probably be my favourite, not from a power level perspective, but this idea that clues are allowing you to find bounty hunters and monster hunters to help you on your cause is such a cool idea for a card. I just think there being so many of them so suddenly is a bit much. They are comparable to Wishes, cards that I've never had a problem with in Magic. I actually quite enjoy. I enjoy the idea of having a toolbox outside of the game that you can reach into for the opportunity cost of having to play a spell to get there first. I think Wishes are a great part of Magic. Burning Wish and Glittering Wish being examples of these if you've never seen them before. The problem is, like, Wishes are sparing, right? We've seen a few more of them in recent times as Best of One has become a focus. We saw a Wish card in Adventures of the Forgotten Realms. We saw a Wish card in Throne of Eldraine. We've seen War of the Spark had a Khan that was a Wish card. They're becoming more common. But if you look at them, there's less than like 20 across Magic's history, I believe. I shouldn't say that number without looking it up, but I'll put it on screen now whether I was right. Meanwhile, we already have like, what is it, fucking half a dozen cards that draft one of 15 cards already. It seems like a very quick escalation to the point, although I guess in their defense there was 60 cards added for Alchemy. Meanwhile, there'll only be 30 added for future Alchemies because this is the first time round. And that brings me to my final point in a way. I am arguing that I think a lot of these designs are very, very cool, and they're very, very fun, and they don't cause any problems for Magic in the slightest, and they're just unique cards to Historic that aren't legal in other formats, and the same way that Tabernacle is unique to Legacy, or that Mother or Giver of Runes is unique to Legacy and Modern and not available in Pioneer, and so on. But that said, there are some issues with the implementation of them, and what that does to these formats going forward. Alchemy as a whole, I think, is a hot fucking mess. I don't know if... I know that some people wanted Standard to be fixed because Standard has been a problem for a while and boring, but I don't know if fixing it with a post-new rotation or post-new set 30-day change to some cards, the errata is then affecting Historic, then new cards that you need to spend wild cards on, which makes the decks even more expensive. Basically, introducing a secondary rotation every set is the right way to do it, because it feels predatory in many ways, because it's making you spend more fucking wild cards. And this is happening into Historic too, right? We had this with anthologies already. Historic anthologies was where they put cards that were Legacy or Vintage legal straight into Historic that were never Modern legal. Captain Sisay being one of them, for example. And this introduced new archetypes, new styles of play, and it's fun and exciting and interesting, but it did mean that there were more wild cards to be spent. It did mean that new archetypes cropped up overnight that pushed other archetypes out. It basically, in short, created an artificial rotation for Historic. And then we obviously have every set coming out changing Historic. Then we had the Jumpstart Historic anthologies, and then we have this now affecting it. It's like you can't go 5 minutes without the format. Oh, Mystical Archives, some of them being legal, some of them not in Strixhaven. You can't go 5 fucking minutes without them restarting or or just rotating the fucking format or shaking it up to a point that you gotta buy more stuff. And we saw that even worse now with the errata from Alchemy, which is fixing cards for standard power level concerns, now affecting Historic. Like with Luminarch Aspirants, there's a link to that in the description below where I've talked about this. They nerfed it to the point that it's not really playable anymore, and they had to replace it with more rare or mythic cards, probably the new ones that they've introduced, thus just spending more money with no wild cards being given back for the errata. Yes, I'm saying a lot of words, but yes, I'm fucking angry. So, I'm trying to be positive. I think a lot of these designs are fucking cool. Like, there's no way that Tyler's Angler generating a fish every time you play an island from a selection of 15 interesting or powerful or iconic fish is not a cool idea. I just think some of the implementation around it, including the ongoing shit state of the MTG Arena economy, puts a sour taste in many people's mouths. And some people don't rationalise that very well and just turn it into just vitriol for these new designs and these new spaces being explored. But I think these spaces being explored is a good thing. I just think they need to work on how they implement that and what they're doing with the arena economy. So that's my thoughts on digital cards. I hope I've shed some light on why I think they're a good thing and why they're fun. And I hope it helps you to realize perhaps you don't hate them. Maybe you don't hate the player, you hate the game. Or not the card, but you hate the client. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I would love to hear what you think, even if you disagree with me, because disagreement can be healthy. Let's have healthy disagreement. Or maybe you just agree with me, because I'm fucking great. If you want to see a video about the fact that they owe me wildcards, there's a link on screen right now. Thank you for watching this video, and thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring it as well. I'll see you all in the next one. Ta-ta for now.